People always wonder why the Salem Witch Trials took so long to start. The accusations began in February, but the first trial wasn't until June. What was happening during those 4 months? We'll explain why Massachusetts did not hold trials then and what that delay cost. Welcome to Salem Witch Trials Daily. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
I'm Sarah Jack. On this day in 1692, neighbors of Salem's Alice Parker found her seemingly dead, lying in the snow. She later awoke as she had from previous spells of unconsciousness. This event was later brought up during Alice's witchcraft trial.
When the Salem witch hunt began, the Massachusetts judicial system was in limbo. We'll investigate why that was the case and why it mattered in the witch trials. Massachusetts received its initial charter from King Charles I in 1629. This allowed Massachusetts to set up its own government and create its own laws, as long as they were generally compatible with the laws of England. So this gave Massachusetts a wide range of freedom and self-governance. Massachusetts was governed by a governor and a bicameral legislature comprised of a House of Deputies and a House of Assistants. And the governor and his assistants formed the Court of Assistants, which was the highest court that tried capital cases like witchcraft. Now, Massachusetts, they passed their first law code in 1641. So they had had some laws on the books since the charter was issued, but generally they just were following English law until they passed their own. And this was called the Massachusetts Body of Liberties. It was passed in 1641 and then updated in 1648 and continued to be the general guide for legality and for individual rights in the Massachusetts Bay Colony.
But in 1684, that charter was revoked by King Charles II. He revoked the Massachusetts Bay Colony Charter primarily because the colony had broken English trade laws and engaged in severe religious oppression. The colony had established a government by the so-called godly, which took extremist actions that displeased England, including driving antinomians out of the colony and executing Quakers.
When we spoke with author Catherine Howe for our podcast, The Thing About Witch Hunts, she described the colonists as having been very, very naughty in the eyes of the crown due to these legal violations and persecutions, leading the king to intervene and strip them of their charter.
There was an interim government then from 1684 to 1686, led by Governor Simon Bradstreet.
Then in 1686, King James II established the Dominion of New England, which was like a giant super colony that included everything at that point in New England. And then in 1688, he added New York and what became New Jersey to that colony as well. The king installed Sir Edmund Andros, an Anglican, as the governor of the Dominion of New England, and he set up his base of operations, his government in Boston. The Puritans definitely despised Sir Edmund Andros. Their loss of self-governance that they had under the 1629 charter created a legal limbo and political instability that later contributed to the environment in which the Salem witch trials occurred. Edmund Andros brought along with him toleration, which was just tolerating other Protestant denominations. They still didn't tolerate Catholics or non-Christians, but they would tolerate now Baptists, Anglicans, Quakers, Puritans, all as Protestants. And so the Puritans didn't like that. They thought that was messing up what they had in Massachusetts, where they had established basically their own church and their own godly commonwealth. The Puritans of Massachusetts were very pleased when they found out that in 1688, in November, William III and Mary II had deposed Mary's father, King James II, as the monarch of the United Kingdom. And so they ruled together, William and Mary. The Bostonians went on to depose Edmund Andros and the Dominion of New England in Boston on April 18th, 1689. It had taken that long for the news to get across the sea to them in the winter months. It takes a while. The Bostonians then they imprisoned Andros and later sent him back to England along with the rest of his officials. Then they were back to an interim government. Elections were held in 1690. Simon Bradstreet was the governor again, and they had elected their deputies and assistants back to office. So government went on during this time. There were trials. People did get tried for at least capital crimes. We know that there were murder trials and that kind of thing in this interim government. This still kept Massachusetts in this legal limbo because they didn't have a actual charter. They were just governing off of nothing at this point in time, and they didn't know how the king was going to react and what more he might do to take away their liberties that they had enjoyed for so long. So tomorrow we're going to look at how Massachusetts obtained a new charter and how that charter was different than what they had received in 1629, how the differences impacted the Salem witch trials.